Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of the DeKalb City Council, August 27, 2018. Prior to our roll call this evening, I'd like to remind anyone who would like to speak to the one item on the agenda tonight, which is the city manager's search and more description on the draft position profile, to please fill out a speaker request form, give it to our city clerk, Lynn Fazekas, or Deputy City Clerk Ruth Scott, both of whom will be manning the clerk's table this evening. And they will see that I get that information so we can get you on the agenda. First of all, I'd ask our city clerk to call the roll.
Jacobson. Finucane.
Here.
Marquardt.
Here.
Fagan.
Here.
Noreko.
Here.
Verbeek.
Here.
Favor.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. There are no items on the regular agenda tonight which are part of our Committee of the Whole meeting, so we'll move to public participation. I have no speaker request forms, and I take it no one in the audience would like to speak to the city manager search agenda consideration tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Ray Munch, our assistant city manager, to introduce our special guest, and we'll move forward with discussion on this. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Aldermen, members of the community. As you've indicated, tonight we're coming back to the city manager search discussion. You can take your attention back to April. That is when the city council directed staff to initiate the search process for DeKalb's next city manager. At that time, a decision was made to release a request for proposals to determine how the search process would be conducted. It was in early June that the council decided on the hybrid model, whereby the city's human resources staff would conduct the search process in conjunction with some assistance from GovHR. Later in June, on the 25th, an agreement was finalized with GovHR to sort of establish what role they would play in this search process. In July, GovHR began that process with the development of the draft position profile. This is a critical step in the recruitment process. The position profile identifies the education, skills, qualifications, experience, and leadership style that the city is looking for in its next manager. As part of that process, Ms. Heidi Voorhees, president of GovHR USA, spoke with the mayor, council members, department heads, the city manager's executive assistant, and several members of the community to determine what we should be looking for in our next city manager. From those discussions, Ms. Voorhees has compiled the draft position profile, which was provided for you in the backup, and she is here this evening to discuss that further. With that, I will turn it over to Ms. Voorhees.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being back with you. As the Assistant City Manager said, I'm Heidi Voorhees. I met with all of you and had the opportunity to chat with you about what you would like to see with respect to qualifications, experience, and background for the city manager candidates. I did my best to distill that into a recruitment brochure, which I'm here tonight to walk through with you and make sure that I've captured the community, the qualifications, the experiences in the way that you would like them reflected. And I'm happy to make changes to that. I also provided at your place tonight a sample schedule that'll get us to me coming back and meeting with you to go over the candidates that have applied for the position, and then you pick it up from there with the HR department with respect to interviews. And the other document that's in front of you is a list of locations where we would advertise and conduct outreach. And we will stay within the budget that was projected in the proposal. So I don't know how you'd like to do this. Maybe some of you have read this and have things you'd like to make me aware of that you would like me to change, or we could go, page by page.
what is the desire of the council? Would you like Heidi to go through the report, or if you have any initial observations, suggestions, we might want to do those first?
Well,
Alderman Fanouken.
yeah, actually, Heidi and I have already spoken, and there's just a couple of minor terminology on both page 2 and page 5. It uses the phrase a master's degree being either highly valued or highly desired, and I wonder if those are the terms we want to use, or if we would prefer to use the term preferred.
So you're asking is, should we say a master's degree is preferred, a master's degree is desired, or a master's degree is
Well, it says highly desired or highly valued, depending
highly
on which
valued?
place you look.
Okay, okay. Any thoughts on that? Bill, do you have any thoughts, first
Well,
of all?
and I think the language we should use is preferred.
Preferred?
Rather than
Okay.
highly valued or highly desired.
Okay. Consensus on that, council?
I've got something to say.
Yeah, is that okay with you? That is not, okay. Go ahead.
No, I mean, preferred is almost, it seems like we're leaning more 70, 80, 90% into when you say preferred. I'd still like the word desirable. Preferred sounds like that's what we want. And desirable is not as, how should I put it, not as much as, like, let me say, preferred sounds more like that's what we want. Where desirable is, if we get it, we get it. If we don't, we don't.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Desired or desirable or versus preferred. Alderman Favor.
So just to tag along with Alderman Fagan, yeah, that's what I've seen several, there'll be the list of qualifications, and then there will be, below that might be desirable. So there might be some, some industry-wide certifications or things like that. Might be the MBA, might be the master's degree. But I am in agreement when you say it's highly desired. That's what we're looking for, and
Okay.
I may be the only one, but that's not necessarily. I'm not necessarily looking for an MBA.
Well, you're not the only one. I mean, you and Pat right now would like highly desired. Any other thoughts? Alderman Verbeek?
Yes, I agree with desirable.
Desirable, okay. Alderman Noriko?
And I'm with preferred.
Preferred, okay. Mike, do you have any thought?
I can go, I would go either way.
Okay.
Which doesn't help Heidi.
Which doesn't help the situation. And actually, I kind of like on page 5 where it says highly valued.
Oh, okay.
Because it does, seems kind of a compromise type position, because you are saying that that's going to be given more weight, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have it.
And I can live with one of those other terms as long as we're consistent throughout, that it, whether we say desired or valued, then, I mean, I can live with those if that's what as a group we decide that's where we want to go. I just thought I would ask about it, and the fact that it's different in those two different places, I think it needs to be consistent.
Yeah, we want to be consistent, and what I hear, I think we have consensus that highly desired would be the terminology we want to use.
Highly desired?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, got it.
Highly? Yep.
Yeah. Highly desired, is that okay? All right. All right. Now, so we got that terminology straightened. What other comments might we have for Heidi tonight? Alderman Noriko.
I have two observations, well, actually three. I think you did a good job capturing kind of the feel of the community and what some of the priorities are, what some of the issues are. In terms of the requirements, while you address, knowledge of budgeting and so forth, I'd like to see financial, management abilities, financial acumen, am I saying that correctly, highlighted more. Also, on page 7, paragraph 3, you say candidates must be comfortable with and seek out community interaction and engagement. I'd like to see it a step further in terms of, actually engaging in dialogue, meaningful dialogue with, community residents, something along those lines. The way it's phrased now, the city manager sounds somewhat passive. And I'd like it to sound like more of an interaction, an interactive process.
Okay, well, let's start with that one. It says candidates must be comfortable with and seek out community interaction and engagement, participating in community events, and being accessible to the residents and businesses, genuinely embracing the DeKalb community.
Mm-hmm.
So you want, I'm just thinking must, you want to say, instead be comfortable with, we could just say must seek out community interaction? That makes it a little more.
Well, it maybe actually say engage in dialogue with.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I think the sentence in and of itself is good. Perhaps we could just add a sentence or something akin to candidates should be comfortable in having dialogue with community members.
Or should expect to engage in ongoing regular dialogue with community
that's good.
members.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, Kate, and I think that's a good one, because I think what we really want, we need a city manager who is not afraid to sit down with this group, that group, whatever group, and having a honest, transparent conversation regarding this city and its movement forward. So
we'll just add a sentence there that said candidates should expect to engage in ongoing regular dialogue with community members.
good, excellent.
Yeah.
And then the other thing you wanted me to sort of elevate that financial acumen piece. What if we put it in the announcement, after a master's degree, we could say a proven record in financial management, effective service delivery. Because we have it in the bullet points, but we can just add it there.
Yeah.
I'll just say financial management,
Good.
effective service delivery. Okay.
Okay. Alderman Verbeek.
Yes, thank you. You did capture everything, I thought, very well. My only objection is, as we discussed, is the advertised salary range of 150 to 165. I'm comfortable with that if that's total compensation, but I'm uncomfortable with that if that is salary. I'm more interested in commensurate with experience, or perhaps including a lower starting salary range. I'd be interested in what you have to say from council.
So what you're suggesting, Mike, is the 150 to 165, depending on experience, plus or minus, would include the benefit package as
If you say
opposed to the
total-
salary?
If you say total compensation,
Yes.
is that what you mean?
Yeah, is that
I'm
number,
sorry.
is council comfortable with that range as total compensation, or is that what you're looking at as far as salary range?
Alderman Orico?
I think that was meant as the salary because, in terms of the compensation study that was done, doesn't that fall within the range for the city manager?
According to the documents I received, I think if I might.
Please,
Mayor,
please, absolutely.
And I'm not sure what you mean by, but if you're saying we want that to include like a car allowance, deferred comp, is that kind of what you're getting at?
Health insurance benefits.
Okay, that's where it might be harder. But I think if you're talking about deferred compensation, auto allowance, any extras within that 150 to 165, I think you could get there. But I think if you start including health insurance, which is, probably $25,000 a year, I think you're going to be way below market. That's just, my opinion. I think you could get there on some of the extra things, but when you get into the health insurance, that gets tricky.
Alderman Fagan?
Yeah, you know, I know what Alderman Verbeek's talking about, but when you're throwing in the health insurance, you know, so how are you going to say the full compensation excluding health insurance? Now, does it sound like you're not going to give health insurance? You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's better to be more vague than it is to be down to the dollar. So that's something we got to watch out for.
Do you think the 150 to 165 with excellent benefits would give us the flexibility as a council to negotiate with the finalists to see if they would be satisfied with what our consensus at that time might be? Michael?
I'm just uncomfortable with the salary range with our current budgetary situation. I'd like that low marker to be 130 perhaps.
Any thought on that? Alderman Noriko?
I think 130 is too low, especially when you look at, you know, other department heads as well. And again, I think that if we, you know, go back to the compensation study salary range, the 150 to 165 was closer to it. I don't happen to have that figure. Molly, do you?
I'm going to pull up the salary range.
Okay, thanks.
It'll take a minute, so if
Okay.
you want to keep your
Yeah.
discussion,
No.
I'll get back to you in just a second.
I do have a copy of that, if that's helpful.
Okay.
I think I've got the right one. I have the one that also has the university communities.
Well, yeah, actually, it was the, let's see.
Alderman Verbeek?
I think it unfair to compare to the salary of department heads, especially when we've got department heads with decades of experience in municipalities. Our candidate may or may not have X amount of experience. I think it's unjustified to say that our city manager must make more than all of our department heads.
I would note that you have a plus or minus after the depending on qualifications. You can go lower. That was the purpose of that. I don't recommend advertising a salary that is lower than the people that the person supervises. I think that in both the public and the private sector is
Would you be
not the-
comfortable, Heidi, with a starting salary $150,000 DOQ, depending on qualifications? In other words, taking out the range to 165. So this would then give us the capability of saying either a little bit less, a little bit more than the 150 standard. Is that something that we could live with?
I would be more comfortable with that.
Okay. Any thoughts on the right side here of the podium? Alderman Fagan?
How would you do that?
the 150 plus or minus,
Is that what it would be? Is that how it would show up here, 150 plus or minus?
right?
Just take out the /165, and it's 150 plus or minus, depending on qualifications, with excellent benefits.
I've got no problem with that.
I think that addresses Mike's point. It still gives us the capability to get that person, Kate, up into that area where if the person does have the experience and, you know, in a competitive situation, is that gonna hinder the search, Heidi?
You know, it's below market.
Okay.
So that always makes it, you know, for where you're drawing from.
Okay.
But if you're willing to go, you know, a little higher if you need to, I think we always ask candidates to disclose the compensation that they're seeking, so they can do that, and as long as you have that plus there, you know, it really is your call. I think the range is appropriate, but again, if you're more comfortable with the 150.
Plus or minus,
Plus or
150 plus
minus.
or minus.
And as long as I can tell candidates that you are willing to go
Sure.
higher for the right person and the right set of qualifications, I think that that's helpful.
Sure. Good. Okay. Alderman Fagan?
The paragraph up above this, where it says candidates will ideally have experience with cities similar in size, demographics to DeKalb, on and on. When I talked to you, you had mentioned something about sometimes you've got to think outside the box, look at people that might not have the same,
Right.
you know, and that's not, that's kind of contradictory in what we talked about.
Well, it just says should have experience. Doesn't say must have.
It says will ideally.
You're on, which page are you on?
I'm right above the paragraph with the 150, 165.
Page 5, Heidi.
Okay. Well, I think it is the ideal that you would have somebody who could slide right into the position. If you would like me to add a sentence that says, you know, candidates with comparable experience in the private sector or the military, so which is what we talked about. And
Right. And that's where I just kind of got a little confused. Yeah.
Something to that effect.
I don't know. It's I mean, that's an idea. I mean, it's.
Well, and I think I did mention to all of you that I think it's important in the market that we're in, which is a very tough market for recruiting. You know, I think I talked to almost all of you about that the demographics are, and the numbers are just not in our favor. And then if somebody needs to relocate, that further complicates all recruitments these days. And if you can be open to candidates that might have a military background or sort of a non-traditional career path, and I think most of you were open to that, it could be desirable. So I'm fine with adding a sentence that says something along the lines of candidates with private sector, nonprofit, or military experience are welcome to apply, or you know, sort of management level experience. I think you want somebody who's been a manager, right, or you know, an executive over budget and HR and those kinds of things.
So you'd want perhaps a sentence or two added to that paragraph?
Yeah, I would say candidates with private sector, nonprofit, or military experience are encouraged to apply, or comparable experience.
You know, I'm trying to think of something here on.
But it gets to the non-traditional
Right.
focus here.
And I think if you'll see on our list, one of the places, and I'm working on another site, is a military site that we can, you know, possibly recruit. We've had great success with candidates who come out of the military with a collaborative, engaging style. Many of them have managed bases, which is similar to city management. They have oversight of civilian employees, and they have great leadership and management training. So, you know, that may also be, and most of the time, they're fine with relocation because they've, you know, that's been their life.
And so. I think somewhere in there, the term non-traditional should be utilized.
Okay.
Welcome back, Alderman Jacobson.
Hello.
Hi, you had a point.
I wanted to build on that. Again, I think the non-traditional, even the words are important in this.
I think
it's
so.
important to demonstrate that we are thinking outside the box, and that candidates that may be pigeonholed in other city manager searches elsewhere, we are opening that pool up to some of those people that may not otherwise have had that experience. And I think there's several, not just the one sentence. But in going through it, my challenge was looking at several of the qualifications and other things. Again, I appreciate what we're looking to do here, and I appreciate what at least I've heard from the council in terms of the outside-the-box thoughts. And again, I worry we're closing. If I were a candidate looking at this job, again, it looks very tailored, that we are looking for something very specific, and I don't know, at least from my perspective, if we are. I think we're open to candidates at this point. I'd like to see a much wider pool than we normally would get, and I think some of this goes to that. Some of the other issues that they will have experience in municipal finance and budgeting, those issues, again, that's not as important to me. If they have some specialty or skill, whether it's management, whether it's budgeting, it didn't have to come from municipal for me. And again, I realize some of the wording is ideally and those things. I would like to see it much more wide focused in terms of the candidate pool that we're going to be looking at. And I think it's important in order to recruit those people, or at least give people the understanding that they may be considered, that we open that pool up in some sort of way, whether it's discussing the non-traditional thing, again, in more than just a couple sentences, or a blanket sentence saying, well, all of these qualifications are the typical qualifications of a city manager candidate. The city council is willing to explore other non-traditional candidates with other skill sets that may not be included. I think that would be the widest path that you could get open that way. So, I mean, that's how I'd like to see it in terms of how it's released to the public and released to candidates.
Does that give you some further direction, Heidi?
I think probably the best way to do it is the way that Alderman Jacobson concluded, that maybe under that specific qualifications, that first paragraph, after that, where that ends with DeKalb, we could say, while the following qualifications are ideal, we are open to candidates with comparable experience in other organizations, something to that effect. Mm. That kind of gets it at
And what Dave is saying too, I think, is that if we remove the word municipal from municipal finance, you know, that would, we want someone who has some financial skills, some management skills, some leadership skills. Whether or not they have to be in municipal government is, I think, does that address your point, David?
I can take it out. I will tell you, municipal finance is very different than private sector finance.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's my only caution. And it's not harder, it's just different.
How about government finance?
We could say that. I mean, I think you just want, ideally, you'd like somebody who's coming in who understands fund accounting, who has some knowledge of public pensions, who has some feel for budgeting, because it is, the way you do all those things in the private sector is very different. You know, it's not that they couldn't catch on, you have a great finance director, but it is different.
Alderman Favor?
So I had a couple of comments, and one was when we were talking about the salary at the top on page 2, you have, I don't know, it might be meant this way, but you've got kind of the layout of what we're looking for, and then down on page 5 again, it repeats again. At the beginning of the paragraph on page 2, it's talking about a public admin degree, a business degree, which is, to our point, we're looking for someone outside. Potentially, we would look at outside of municipal planning, look at other areas. And then again on page 5, though, then that shows up below that in the specific qualifications. I saw somewhere in here it said executive level management.
Right.
So I'm looking in, to read through this document, the qualifications seem to fall into 3 or 4 different areas, and I don't know if that's by design or should they be cleaned up. And I can see a summary at the top where you might put in, this is a position, here's a summary. You don't have to read through the whole thing to see if this is for me or not, but
well, the professional announcement itself, that first part before you get to DeKalb's history,
okay,
that'll be in the brochure, but that will also be pulled out and needs to stand alone, because that's what we put on websites and what we push out through social media.
That's almost like an executive summary
Exactly.
of what we're going to see in the rest of the
We
document.
include it in the brochure as well, but it does need to be a standalone piece. So that's why it's a little repetitive.
so then we need to make sure that what that says matches
Right.
what else is within
And
the
I've
document.
made the notes today with respect to the salary, the highly desired degree, the non-traditional experience, the financial acumen. I'm taking, I don't know if we decided, I can take the word municipal out of finance and budgeting. I mean, I think you want to give yourself as many options, to Alderman Jacobson's point, as many options as possible. Be as open to as wide a variety of candidates as you can, but also folks have to understand that this is a local government management position, and you're going to have to perform in that role. And that, you know, I want people to understand what the role is as well.
And I think the fact that a number of the specifics, as you say, Tony, are repeated and reiterated, and I think that's what we're trying to give Heidi some guidance in tonight, so that she can clean those up and make sure that there's a certain level of consistency. You know, having said that, we can wordsmith the heck out of this thing until it becomes confusing to anyone and everyone. So, but I do appreciate the specifics, the specific points being brought out. Alderman Jacobson?
Again, even in terms of the educational capabilities, I think we're limiting our candidate pool and saying those typical things, those typical degrees that would generally be the city manager track degrees. Again, I look back at one of our former city managers who was very non-traditional education, had a doctorate degree in a totally unrelated Bachelor of Arts arts field, but had the capabilities and qualities that we felt at that time fit to be our city manager. Again, when you understand the organizational development majors, when you understand some of the OMIS reality that we have out there with the IT piece, when you understand, especially from another large organization like specifically the educational field, again, they didn't come up through the municipal track of government, but they are overseeing an operation as complex, if not more complex, with more employees and bigger budgets and state funds and all those things. They wouldn't have necessarily a planning degree. They might have an organizational development or a higher education or an educational development degree. I just think we have to open that pool up to try to alert those candidates that are out in the field, hey, this is an opportunity that we would consider you for this deal if you have the other qualities. We understand that 25 years ago when you were in school at the beginning of your career, you had a different career path. But if you have those qualities and you have those skills that we need right now, we want you to apply. And I think that's, again, one of those things that we can't pigeonhole ourselves on. The only other comment I'd make, and I jokingly brought it up to Molly this weekend, in going through the document up somewhere near the top when discussing, let me see what page it is for you, our municipal organization on page 4, it discusses the city manager's role with the mayor and alderpersons. As far as I'm aware, we are still aldermen as a group. Again, if we are advertising this out to our city manager, I think we should use our professional titles appropriately and correctly, and until that is changed otherwise, I would like to see that change made in the document as well.
Anybody have a problem with that?
I'm biting my tongue.
I know you are.
And I think, you know, to your point, David, we need to appeal to the widest range of individuals as possible. You are more likely to appeal to women if you use the phrase alderpersons or council members.
I don't
or
mind
city
council members. That's
okay.
effective as well.
You know,
I
council.
would acquiesce to council members.
Okay, council members is our compromise.
Got it.
Okay,
I got it.
very good. See, thank you.
Problem solved.
And can I, just so we can wrap, you know, bring your point about the degree, are there degrees you would like me to list that aren't in there?
Again, as far as I'm concerned, to get the widest possible field, a bachelor's degree, we would,
Or
they
just wanna
must
not
possess
list
a
any?
bachelor's degree, and a master's degree or other advanced degree is
Okay.
highly valued.
So
I
just
don't
take
think
any
we have
reference
to
out to
have any reference in there.
business or public, okay, I can do that.
So the terminology we're going to use that we have a comfort level with is council persons,
Council members.
council members. Are you comfortable with that, Alderman Jacobson?
I am.
Okay, council members.
Got it.
Okay.
And do you want me to take out any reference to a specific type of bachelor's degree and just leave it bachelor's degree?
Bachelor's
That's-
degree, I would
okay.
think, yeah. That gives us more flexibility, I think.
Dave, you weren't here.
Okay, Alderman Fagan.
I want to ask the rest of the council members, around the specific qualifications, you know, when we're talking about thinking outside the box and everything. We've got a line item here where it says under specific qualifications on page 5. Where am I at? I lost it. Oh, where it says master's degree and other advanced degree is highly valued, which Alderman Jacobson touched on. Candidates must also have 7 to 10 years increasingly responsible leadership experience, ideally in an organization of similar size and complexity to DeKalb. Again, we're thinking outside the box. You know, there could be someone that's been a city manager somewhere for 3 years, and that disqualifies them.
No, it says,
Am I reading that wrong?
well,
Am I?
no.
I think the word is must. It might just say candidates would ideally have 7 to 10 years.
And I guess
See
increasingly
what I mean?
responsible leadership experience, all I'm saying is that person they might have been an assistant for 3 years, they might have been a department head,
Okay.
just
Oh,
that
okay.
they've had, it doesn't have to be as a
I'm
city
just,
manager.
you know, I just read it differently, but yeah, okay.
I
We
would agree.
can,
I would agree. I think,
We can
again, our
soften it.
candidate pool is going to be, as we've discussed, someone at the beginning of their career or someone at the end of their career is probably going to be very likely for our candidate pool. Again, there may be a rock star out there that's 4 or
Right.
5 years out of school. There could be someone that's an up-and-comer that someone either undervalues or they haven't gone through the 7 to 10 year train to get to that level yet that may be a very good fit for us. So I
Then
would-
do you
I would
think
agree
that
with
should
you.
be changed, David?
Again, to open up the pool to as large as we can, I don't think we should be putting in things that limit our candidate pool.
so if we took out, if we said, we would just take that out, just take, must.
Yeah, I mean,
just
Candidates
have
must have
experience.
experience as leaders, ideally in an organization. I don't know if the 7 or 10 year requirement would be necessary for us.
Yeah, if you just take out 7 to 10 years.
Yeah, just have increasingly responsible executive leadership and management.
How's that sound? Take out the 7 to 10. Is that okay, Pat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and to your point, in the position announcement, it says in local government or comparable field. Do you want that softened as well?
It's up front.
What page are we on?
That'd be on page 2, Dave.
It's right
up
in the
here.
paragraph above DeKalb's history.
Paragraph above.
Right here.
Right. Because it's, those two items were repeating each other.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, you're right about, you got 7 to 10 years on that item there.
Yeah, I'll take the 7 to 10 out.
On both
I'm asking if
On
you're,
both, on both
yeah,
paragraphs.
I've got that part, but I mean, do you want it to say in local government or comparable field is the question I had.
In local government and/or? Or?
It says or now.
That or says plenty, I mean, as it is
Yeah.
local government or comparable. field.
Yeah.
I think
Okay, that's the way it reads now. We
Yeah.
can,
Everybody comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay. What other comments do we have for Heidi as we've looked at this document and are wordsmithing it quite well? Alderman Favor.
Well, just to jump back to the last question, did we leave on similar size and complexity to DeKalb, or do we want, again, what if you have a rock star who's in a smaller municipality? Are they now disqualified? Just to use your terminology, Dave.
What are your thoughts on that, Council? Do we want to remove the comparable size community? Alderman Verbeek,
Yeah, I would suggest removing it.
removing it? Okay, comfortable with that?
I mean,
we
I
just
think-
end it at experience? Just end that sentence, that experience.
Yeah, if they can show, increasing responsibility in leadership,
Within their field.
right? And we can, if they say I've only had three reports, then obviously that might change our view, but yeah.
No, I think Dave's point of a rock star perhaps coming from a smaller community.
Yeah,
With somebody who's got some moxie and some savvy with working with other folks and having the interpersonal skills that is so important, in my opinion, to this position. Yeah, Alderman Fanouken.
Well, I'd like to leave in the reference, though, about the complexity of DeKalb. I think I'd like to leave that reference in there. I mean, I can understand a smaller organization, but it can still be very complex, and obviously the city's very complex with the, as we move along. I think that, somebody tell me if I'm wrong in wanting to keep that in there.
You comfortable with keeping that particular verbiage in, Tony? Complexities, the complexities?
Do you want to say complexity to DeKalb or just in a complex organization?
I'd be comfortable with that, too.
Complex organization, that
Yeah.
sound okay?
Yeah.
Heidi?
Okay. Yep, I got it.
Okay, good. Okay, any other comments? Or, I thought this was just an excellent document, and I appreciate the opportunity, Heidi, of you coming out and spending time with
Oh, it was my
some
pleasure.
folks in the community and staff and this council. Each of us had the opportunity to chat with you at length, and I appreciate that. Okay.
So going forward, do you want me to clean this up, send it back to you one more time to review?
Yeah,
or-
I think so.
and then-
Does that make sense? Yeah,
Yes.
and I don't think you need to come out here again. I think
No.
if you send it here, we'll take a look at it. If there are any specifics, I'll get back to you, but,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Alderman-
if you could turn it around quickly, because we're going to print this and
Oh, yeah,
take
yeah.
a.
Right.
Yeah,
get it on
I think the key, if you turn it around
I'll
quickly,
get it
we'll
to you,
turn.
I'll get it to you in the morning. yeah.
We'll turn it around quickly. Alderman Noriko?
I have a question about the advertising and outreach.
Sure.
I didn't see NIU's public administration program listed. Was that deliberate or?
Well, they don't, these are websites.
Oh, I see.
That's,
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
But the folks at NIU will be aware of it,
Okay.
for sure.
okay.
I think they probably are already.
Yeah, well, yeah, but in terms of their
right,
getting,
right.
details.
Any other comments? If not, Heidi, I appreciate it. Ray, I appreciate any closing remarks that you may have, and then we'll wrap this committee of the whole meeting up.
Going back to the timeline, if I could just get direction from the council, once Ms. Voorhees gives you the revisions that we've gone over tonight and you have a chance to look at those, the direction I'd be looking for is, do you want that to come back to you at a council meeting for action, or are you comfortable putting the document out at that point?
Alderman Fanouken?
I think that if we get a chance to review the edited document, like she sends it to you,
Yeah.
you share it with the rest of
I'll
us.
share it
and
with
unless
you.
somebody has a major complaint, I think we move along. I
Yeah,
mean, we've been at this for a while already.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything big-time major that,
Right.
we saw there was a problem. So, no, we'll get it back to you, and Heidi's going to turn it around quickly. We're going to pledge to turn it around to her quickly, and we're going to stay on this timetable.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn this committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. We are adjourned. City Council begins at 6 o'clock.